Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. One man dead while two soldiers injured following shooting incident in St. Catherine. Health specialist calls for sacking of individuals responsible for vaccine mismanagement. And later, in sports, national senior and junior championships underway at the National Stadium. I'm Giovanni Dennis and here are the details. We begin with news that a man is dead and two soldiers hospitalized following a shooting in Homestead, St. Catherine this morning. It's understood that about 6 o'clock, a team of police and soldiers were conducting an operation. Residents say they heard explosions in the area. It was then discovered that two members of the Jamaica Defense Force and a man were shot. The man was pronounced dead at hospital. The soldiers were admitted. TVJ News has learned that one of the soldiers had to undergo emergency surgery as he was shot in the abdomen. A firearm was later recovered from the scene. Indicom has since launched an investigation into the incident. To other news, a public health specialist is calling on the Ministry of Health to fire those responsible for what he argues is the mismanagement of the COVID-19 vaccination process. Additionally, Professor Winston Davidson is suggesting that the ministry uses the lottery system to get things under control. Shamala Pullen explains.
The latest attempts to vaccinate the population against the dreaded COVID-19 have been disastrous. From overcrowded centers to persons being turned away, the process has been anything but smooth. It's why public health specialist Professor Winston Davidson thinks those who are involved in the management of the vaccination process should be held responsible and action be taken against them.
The buck stops in the management system, both the technical and supportive management systems, with two people, the CMO and the PS. If they have put somebody in authority to carry out these functions and the person has failed consistently, then that person must be removed from office and replaced by somebody who is competent. Some individual must be responsible for this process. And it has happened in the past.
Professor Davidson says while the ministry has no control of the scarcity of the medicine, communication, he stressed, is key.
If you have a date to return and the government has not been able to source the vaccines to give the second dose, then they must communicate and let you know that that date will not be that you will not be able to get the vaccine on that date, and give a new date. A date that, in fact, will give you an opportunity to source the vaccine.
Going forward, Professor Davidson is suggesting that the Ministry of Health uses the lottery system technique to address the issues.
If you have 100 vaccines, you want to give each one the 1,000 an equal chance of being selected. So a lottery system will give 1,000 people and everyone the same chance of being selected if you draw 100 from it. So you have 100 vaccines. You draw 100 from the 1,000, and you keep drawing until you have exhausted the amount to be given.
And with Jamaica expected to get more vaccines in the coming days, Professor Davidson is hoping there won't be a recurrence. Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health says it is currently working on a system that will provide real-time data for a smoother flow of its vaccination exercises. Director of Family Services, Dr. Melody Ennis, says this is to avoid an overrun and confusion at vaccination sites.
We have been working assiduously with our electronic solution to ensure that persons are indeed notified prior to turning up at the vaccination site. In addition, we should be rolling out shortly the other arm of this program where persons will be able to go online and actually make their second appointment as well.
Dr. Ennis also says presently the ministry is only vaccinating persons 50 years and over who are close to the 12 weeks for the second dose.
Then we move same 50 and over for persons who are at week 11, 50 and over, persons at week 10, etc., until we get to all persons 50 and over.
In the meantime, Professor of Public Health and Epidemiology at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Peter Figueroa, believes that deadly health catastrophe is looming. He was responding to the reopening of the entertainment industry. Anthony Logg reports.
The Prime Minister's announcement in Parliament on Tuesday to reopen the entertainment industry is the source of growing criticism from health experts island-wide. There are fears of a possible outbreak of the Delta variant in Jamaica that could force a fragile health system to collapse. Professor of Public Health and Epidemiology at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Peter Figueroa, believes large gatherings will only make matters worse.
The Delta variant, we know, is responsible for that massive surge in India, which really was blistering fast, partly because not just of the variant, but because they had massive gatherings, political gatherings and religious gatherings, and therefore it spread very rapidly. And
the Delta variant is the product of the coronavirus, which is mutating at a much faster rate and has been wreaking havoc across the globe. Dr. Figueroa believes it's only a matter of time before Jamaicans begin to feel the impact of the deadly variant.
If it is already here, or it's on the way here, then we could have a very fast takeoff in the increase in cases.
For his part, opposition spokesman on health Dr. Maurice Guy is not opposed to the reopening of the entertainment segment, but he had a warning.
The reality is that when you open the sector as is proposed, there is a risk that you will have a spike in the summer months, and part of what needs to happen is that the protocols have to be strictly adhered to.
Anthony Logg, TVJ News.
Still on COVID-19, 7 deaths were recorded over the last 24 hours, bringing the tally to 1,049. 5 of the deaths were previously under investigation. Meanwhile, the country recorded 46 new positive cases of COVID-19 on Wednesday. This pushed the total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases to 49,841. The positivity rate is now 3.4%. 122 persons remain in hospital. 9 are critically ill. There are currently 19,108 active cases. Spanish Town Mayor Norman Scott is hailing as a step in the right direction the announcement of a 50% discount for persons applying for permits and licenses for entertainment events. He says the St. Catherine Municipal Corporation stands ready to facilitate the influx of applications.
We are hoping that all the persons that are involved in round robins and all the small entertainment events will now orderly come in and get their permits so that we don't have to send the police to close them down. A 50% reduction means a whole lot.
Meanwhile, President of the South St. Catherine Chamber of Commerce, Keisha Reid, says businesses are looking forward to the 11 o'clock curfew which takes effect on July 1.
Businesses can now close at the time that they usually close. Supermarkets can close at 8 o'clock as they used to. On Fridays, they used to close at 9 o'clock. That is, it's like business going back to normal now.
And it's now time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. We'll have much more when we return. Welcome back. We're continuing the news. With 3 days to go before the start of CSEC and CAPE exams, uncertainty about grooming policies for students lingers. It's why Principal of the Froome Technical High School, Norman Allen, is seeking clarity from the Ministry of Education. Sandy Williams reports.
Principal of the Frome Technical High School, Norman Allen, has been tough on discipline. This extends to how his students are groomed.
A young man came with cornrow and he was told that he is to pull out the cornrows and he will be allowed access.
But Education Minister Favour Williams has repeatedly said hairstyles should not be used to exclude students from school. Recently, the Ministry of Education warned schools not to bar students from sitting exams because of their hairstyles. But Mr. Allen says the ministry's statement contradicts the school's rules and guidelines.
The school policy speaks to low and even haircut. The school policy speaks clearly to low and even haircut. We have since seen our students come in with high hair, very high, yeah? And the most that we would have said to them is ensure that it's properly combed, yeah? Yesterday, in particular, when the article was done, a child came with cornrows. Now, I don't think that the minister or the ministry would want to say to schools that boys should be allowed with cornrows.
For the Education Minister,
please contact the ministry, give us the details of the situation, and I am sure through our deliberation we can guide that principle.
Meanwhile, a National Grooming Commission comprised of 3 ministries is in the process of reviewing a civil grooming policy for schools.
We're asking our school leaders to exercise patience and forbearance, allow our students to sit their exams, and to know that this national grooming policy is in consultation currently with a view to ensuring that it is considered before we are back in the full face-to-face mode in schools.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
As more communities across the island complain about the lack of water amidst a prolonged dry period, the National Water Commission, NWC, said it's making improvements to its distribution network that's already showing positive results in the corporate area. Krista Campbell has been speaking with the NWC president, who is promising improvements in rural areas.
The yearly dry spell without the typical announcement of water restrictions from the National Water Commission, NWC. NWC President Mark Barnett says it's largely because the Commission is responding better to leaks.
We have reduced our NRW in the low just about 40% from where it was over 60% over the period. So that would have had an impact on our ability to improve our distribution.
But there's also been more rains than usual between August and November last year.
Throughout the period, both our major facilities were 100% and overflowing in some instances, which is quite unusual at this time of the year. Oftentimes we'll be consuming what we stored and expect a replenishment just about May, June. But this year we are seeing very good inflows.
He says the Mona Reservoir and Hermitage Dam are almost full to capacity, but urges customers to still conserve in order to keep the water supply levels up.
Each member of an household don't need to use more than 35 gallons of water per day. If you're doing that, and we would even want it to go lower than that.
Now, while many rural areas, especially agricultural zones, continue to struggle with water access, Mr. Barnett says they will soon see improvements from projects in St. Elizabeth and Northern Trelawney. Additionally, $2 billion will be spent over the next 3 years for a water project in Manchester,
which would see an improvement in the source at Pepper, improvement in your gutters and spur tree pumping facility, and move water all the way up into Mandeville. We're also doing the same thing at Linstead, where we now constructed a new well just about to produce over 2 million gallons of water per day. That will improve water supply into Linstead, Yuatan, York Street, etc.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
To a TVJ News follow-up now, the National Works Agency is defending the construction of a section of the Southern Coastal Highway in 10 miles Bull Bay, St. Andrew. Sandy Williams reports.
The road work in 10 miles Bull Bay symbolizes bigger things to come for the East, but for residents, it's a disaster waiting to happen. This structure is of particular concern as the people believe it will worsen the flooding woes in the area. But the National Works Agency says the erection of a pier in the river will do more good than harm.
And that is normal. We have done that in many instances across the country because that is the design. If we were not to do so, then the chances of such a structure being compromised, especially in the face of inclement weather, would be greater.
NWA Communications Manager Stephen Shaw insists the construction is being done in accordance to engineering training, best practices, and the terrain of the land in the area.
As part of the overall construction process, we are going to be mitigating the likelihood of flooding in all of these areas. Now, the fact that we are going to be doing work in the vicinity of the bridges doesn't necessarily mean that persons may not experience problems in the future.
As for the Bull Park River, which is heavily silted,
clearly there is a need to have that free flow situation dealt with. That too is going to be part and parcel of what we are going to be dealing with as part of the overall construction activities for the Southern Coastal Highway improvement.
And the single channel that was put in place to allow excess water out of the community.
The channel will allow for very low flows not to get into the construction activities up to a point. Once you get out of the ground, then it is okay, because then by that time you would not have had the likelihood of the underground situation being impacted.
The residents had told us they sent several letters to the National Works Agency, NWA, about their concerns over the construction of the Southern Coastal Highway in the middle of the Bradley River, but failed to get an answer. Mr. Shaw also responded to that.
At least one person who I saw on camera has been in office. We have met with the individual in the office. We have met with the individual and relatives of his on site, and everything about the construction has been communicated to him. He has his concerns. We have tried to allay those concerns, and there isn't much more that we can do.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
And it's now time for the Business Minute. Here's Cody and Barrett.
The gate for the entertainment sector to rebound is now open, but there's a long way before members of the entertainment industry will break even. And that's why Chairman of the Entertainment Advisory Board, Howard McIntosh, is urging players to be careful in order to continue earning.
We all now need to become marshals of the industry, so that we say to people, us, did you really apply to have an event and how the thing working? Because right now, we're not just protecting the industry, we're protecting Jamaica. And that's a tremendous responsibility to bear.
Business development firm Carbine Capital Investments has partnered with Jamaica Promotions Corporation, the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, and the Jamaica Business Development Corporation to support the Export Development Program Export Max 3. The firm committed $1 million Jamaican to the program, which aims to increase Jamaica's export sales and bring more than 40 Jamaican companies to new international markets. Carbine has been known to enable small and medium-sized enterprises access larger markets, both domestically and internationally. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Cody Ann Barrett.
And we now head to a quick break. When we come back, Simon Preston will have your Midday Sports.
Welcome back. It's now time for Midday Sports. I'm Simon Preston. Two-time world junior champion Dexter Lee was among the qualifiers of the heats of the men's 100 meters on the opening day of the National Senior Championships at the National Stadium this morning. The 30-year-old Lee, who has not made a national team since the 2011 World Championships in Daegu, clocked 10.66 to advance. Javoy Tucker was the fastest qualifier from the preliminaries with 10.59 seconds. The heats of the men's 100 meters is set to begin at 6:50 p.m. The heats of the women's equivalent is set for 6:35. Live coverage of the National Senior and Junior Championships can be seen on TVJ, TVJ Sports Network, and onespotmedia.com. Keita Campbell set a new national age group record of 1 minute 06.78 seconds in the boys 15 to 17 100-meter breaststroke at the CC Can Swimming Championship in Puerto Rico this morning. He bettered the previous record of 1 minute 07.30 set by Brad Hamilton in 2007. The 17-year-old Campbell produced the record while placing second in the preliminary round of the event, won by Alexandre Grand of Haiti in 1 minute 04.95 to book his spot into this afternoon's final. The afternoon session is expected to start at 4:30 Jamaica time. To football we go now, as reggae girl Tiffany Cameron has left Ferencváros and has joined fellow Hungarian club Eto FC Győr on a 2-year deal until the summer of 2023. The 29-year-old earned this deal after scoring 11 goals and tallying 8 assists in 25 appearances last season. FC Győr is the 12th club of Cameron's career. The former Borussia Mönchengladbach player was a member of Jamaica's squad at the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup in France. To South America we go now, as defending champions Brazil have advanced to the quarterfinals of the Copa America after defeating Colombia 2-1 in Rio de Janeiro on Wednesday. Luis Diaz gave Colombia a surprise 1-0 lead in the 10th minute before Roberto Firmino equalized in the 78th minute. Casemiro got the winner for the home side in the second half of stoppage time to secure their third straight win of the tournament. In the curtain raiser, Ecuador battled to a 2-2 draw with Peru. The competition continues today at 4 o'clock as Bolivia plays Uruguay, while at 7 o'clock Chile entertains Paraguay. And finally this afternoon, the away goal rule in European club competitions. All ties level on aggregate at the end of the second leg league, and Women's Champions League will no longer use the rule. And that is it for your Midday Sports Report. I'm Simon Preston. Giovanni, it is over to you.
Thanks so much, Simon. And that's how we end the Midday News. I'm Giovanni Dennis. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, the sports and the production teams, have a good afternoon.